cents per head of the population of the province of Newfoundland, which they took as being 325,000 until the first decennial census after the date of union. 80 cents a head. That's what all provinces in Canada get. They get 80 cents a head from the beginning of Confederation. That's the famous price of the sheepskin. The House will remember the reference in Nova Scotia. The anti-Confederates said when they despised this 80 cents a head, which was much more money then than it is now, they described it as selling your birthright for the price of a sheepskin. Evidently, that used to be about what a sheepskin would bring back in 1867. Oh, then another, it's in two sections, 26 is A and B. Then 27 comes, tax agreement. Canada had just a year or two before that, before we became a province, Canada had offered the other provinces to make a tax rental agreement under which the government of Canada would rent from the provinces the right to collect income tax and corporation tax, so that the people of those provinces would have to pay only one income tax, the one they would pay to the government of Canada, and they wouldn't have to pay an extra one to the government of their province, and they wouldn't have to pay an extra income tax to the municipality, which they were doing in some parts of Canada. Canada said, let's make an agreement. We'll collect the income tax and nobody else. We'll collect the corporation taxes from the big companies. And in return, we will pay you, each province, a certain amount. Now, they had made that just before we became a province. And so in section 27, they give us the offer to enter into that same agreement for the remainder of the contract, if we wished to do so. As a matter of fact, we did wish to do so, and the first thing we did when we became a province and the House of Assembly was elected, one of the first things we did was pass an act here in this chamber authorizing the government to make that tax rental agreement with the government of Canada, and it has stood from that day to this. Then 28. You come to term 28. All this is financial. Term 28. In order, it says, in order to facilitate, to make it a little easier, in order to facilitate the adjustment of Newfoundland to the status of a province of Canada. The recognition was there. They couldn't help recognizing it. They'd have to be blind not to see that for Newfoundland to become adjusted. Stabbing, Newfoundland, while he was doing that, he argued that Newfoundland was not a sovereign dominion because Newfoundland had not adopted the Statute of Westminster. Now, he could be right. He could be right. I was in this chamber when the Statute of Westminster was debated, and the Prime Minister of that day, Sir Richard Squires, moved the House to pray the Queen, the King, not to make Newfoundland, not to adopt the Statute of Westminster, or acquainting the King that Newfoundland didn't want to adopt the Statute of Westminster. And that is true. And Mr. Brown could have been right when he argued that we had never become a full-fledged dominion in the strict constitutional sense of the word. But even if we were not a dominion, we were a country. We were a colony. We were a British. We were not a province of Canada. This was not the government of Canada making some kind of a deal with one of its provinces. This was a British country, far older than Canada herself. 3 times as old, 4 times as old, 5 times as old. We're 450-odd years old. Canada is only 90 years old. There was a country, an ancient British country, the first British country in the whole world, outside of England, the first on earth, making a treaty, making a pact with another country, also a British country, that we thought was an honorable country, whose statesmen we thought were not only honorable, but would always be honorable men, who would honor Canada's signature, would always honor, not tear up contracts, not tear up a constitution. And here were these 2 British countries making a solemn agreement, making a pact. Mr. Pearson says here is a pact between two countries, in consequence of which the federal government, the Canadian government, undertook to do certain things. It undertook to set up a royal commission which would make recommendations as to how Term 29 could be implemented in the way laid down in the pact. Then, without consultation of any kind, remember, the pact was made by consultation. The pact was made by negotiation lasting 6 months, first for 3 months, then a year later for 3 months again, between 8 appointed representatives of the National Convention, or 7 rather, and then 7 representatives appointed by the Commission of Government. We negotiated and we finally signed a pact. It was bilateral, not unilateral, not just one side. It was not take it or leave it. It was two countries, the duly appointed representatives of two countries, two British countries. When the people of Newfoundland, you see, Mr. Pearson has never been punished by Newfoundland, and so he has no particular desire to punish us. Mr. Pearson has no reason to punish Newfoundland. No reason. Mr. Pearson couldn't, if he sat down a week and did nothing else, couldn't even imagine any reason why he should want to punish Newfoundland. Mr. Pearson can't think of any reason. I can't think of any reason why Mr. Pearson would want to punish Newfoundland. Who has punished us? Mr. Diefenbaker, Mr. Brown, Mr. McGraw, all the members of the Tory party in the House of Commons. Without exception, all of them have punished Newfoundland, have cut Newfoundland's throat, have stabbed Newfoundland in the back, have betrayed us. We're dead now, aren't we? We're not dead. It takes more than Diefenbaker to kill us. It takes more. Cut her throat and stabbed her in the back. She's still alive. Brother. We shall correct this violation of a contract, and we shall make sure once again that the Act of Union is honored in all its parts and is carried out as it must be carried out in letter and in spirit. When the people of Newfoundland, he says, when the people of Newfoundland joined their destiny and linked their history and added their glorious and honored traditions to ours, to Canada's, they did not dream. When the people of Newfoundland did that, they did not dream that 10 years later, the government of the other party to the contract, the government of Canada, would impose on them a decision, a settlement, without consultation with them.
You deserve to be celebrated. The Rock Steakhouse offers a relaxed atmosphere with the highest quality steak. Celebrate special people and moments with an exceptional menu, including an impressive seafood selection and amazing cocktails. The Rock Steakhouse Bar and Grill, 7 Navigator Avenue, St. John's.
Community Business Development Corporation loan programs strengthen communities by helping businesses in rural Atlantic Canada.
Find your perfect fit at Belly Beth, offering an extensive size range of bras as well as bra-size swimwear, lingerie, sports and nursing bras, loungewear, and more. Voted Best Lingerie Store for 4 years running. Visit Belly Beth. Comfort and confidence, one bra at a time.
Contact Key Assets at 709-579-9290. Now recruiting family-based carers province-wide.
Well, there was an opposition in the House of Assembly in 1959. The leader, the aforementioned Malcolm Holland, to Joe Smallwood in the election of August 59, was to defeat in Hollett's riding of St. John's West. Now, you will notice as we watch this last little bit of just a couple of minutes that the whole tone of the opposition. Hollett rises to ask a question, but he barely gets it out of his mouth, and Smallwood is waiting to pounce. And then Hollett says nothing else then. And I don't think that today, well, the tone of the House is different. And the leader of the government would not be able to get away quite so easily. But then this was 1959 and things were different, and Joe Smallwood was Premier of the province. Here's a little bit from the House of Assembly, beginning with Malcolm Hollis.
Will the Premier given any thought to the fact that by 1962, $8 million will be small stuff compared to what we may get out of even PC government?
I'm glad the Leader of the Opposition asked that question, because it reminds me to clear up something. The resolution to which I'm speaking, if the Leader of the Opposition will turn to it, it's on page 2. If I beg the honourable gentleman's pardon, on page 1, term 5. Term 5 says what term 29 is, item 5 tells what term 29 is, and item 6 and 7 tell what term 29 is not. And then I want to go on to 8. Now let me read. Term 29 provides for the continuation of Newfoundland's public services as they were found to be when the McNair Royal Commission made its report and recommendations.
Which one are we reading? I'm sorry.
5. Item 5. This continuation of the province's public services is to be paid for by the Government of Canada after the people of Newfoundland have borne to the Government of Newfoundland at least as great a burden of taxation, having regard to their capacity to pay, as the people do in the nearby maritime provinces. And this is to be done without qualification and without limit of time. Now that's what term 29 is.
Take the hassle out of your next home project and leave it to Hickey's Timber Mart. They've got the knowledge and tools to make sure it's done right. Visit Hickey's Timber Mart in Harbor, Maine.
UA strike and the term 29 issue, and it's amazing when you reflect back on it, because at the moment of his greatest triumph, the election of 1959, in that same year, and he was swept back into power, but the first seeds after a decade in power, there were hundreds and hundreds of loggers in central Newfoundland who would never again vote for J.R. Smallwood, or their families for that matter. And it is arguable, not to say that it's fact, but it is arguable that it was the beginning of the end for Smallwood. Anyway, we have to go. It has been, well, I've enjoyed it anyway. Hope you have. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.